Hi, this is the Recklessly Skeptical Podcast. My name is Joe. Over there we have...
My name's Josh.
And
my name is Big Daddy Matt.
Big Daddy Mac. You can find us on YouTube at Recklessly Skeptical. You can find our other channels, The Evil Atheist and ZZZ, Giant Awake. Also come to our Facebook group page, The Evil Atheists.
We're pretty awesome.
Yes, join us.
It's way cool.
All right, so today we wanted to talk about the death of Antonin Scalia. It has sparked some political debate about his nomination and the presidential race. What do you guys think about it?
Yeah, we got a lot to cover, is what I think.
There's so much going on. My God.
So first off, I just want to say this. I'm happy he's no longer on the bench. It's hard for me to be happy about the death of anyone. I think overall that it's good that he's off the bench regardless of how he's off the bench, because he was his policies and his ideas were so extreme to one side that I mean, part of me wants to say, yeah, let's rejoice, but let's not rejoice. Let's take it into consideration that everybody is. There were people who respected him, and there's no reason for us to be the bad guys by saying, fuck yeah, Scalia's dead, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I don't know whose quote this is, but it's a good quote I like. This is the quote, and it's not verbatim. I've never wished anybody dead, but have read a few obituaries with a smile on my face.
That's a decent quote.
Yeah, and I'm with you, Josh. I don't want anybody to die, but Scalia was a bigot. He voted to take people's rights away. So I am happy he's off the bench.
Yeah. So
agreed.
The immediate impact of all of this is that it looks like Obama will have the opportunity to nominate someone to the Supreme Court. Go ahead.
Oh, and I was just going to say, Obama said Saturday that he would nominate a successor in due time.
Okay, so he will, because I know a lot of the Republicans right now are pissed, and they want him to wait and let the next president do it, or the people should vote on who the next person should be, and it's like, well, we did. We are voting on the next person because we voted for Obama.
Yeah. So let's take a second to kind of unpack that. In my mind, that's an important part of this whole story. So there's an article by the Washington Post, who I don't really care for the Washington Post, but oh well, we'll talk about the article anyways. And it's can the Republicans really block? And actually, let's talk about this for a second. So when we nominate someone to the presidency, if there's a seat that needs to be filled, how that process works is that the President of the United States nominates someone to the Supreme Court, and then what happens is then the Senate, I don't think it includes the House of Representatives, I think it's just the Senate, then either confirms or declines on that nomination. Antonin Scalia was one of the most right-winged people on the bench, if not the most right-wing person on the bench. So obviously Obama, whoever he selects, is not going to be anything near Antonin's right-wingness. And there are a lot of decisions like the case with reproductive rights, and I'm trying to remember the name of it.
The Hobby Lobby?
Yeah, the Hobby Lobby case. That I think was a fucking terrible idea. The ruling was wrong. Same with the politics and money. The people are companies or corporations are people, and they have religious identities, which is just nonsense. Businesses are not people. And this is some of the stuff that he came up with. He's also had quotes that atheists are not real Americans, things like that. So whoever gets nominated by Obama is definitely not going to be that far right. The problem is that the Senate has to confirm it. The Senate is controlled by the Republicans, so it would be essentially career suicide. It would be political suicide to agree with anybody that Barack nominates who's not at least somewhat conservative. But Obama shouldn't, in a million years, put somebody who's conservative back on the bench.
Yes, no.
Right now,
shouldn't happen.
So Kennedy's been the decision maker, Justice Kennedy, because he goes back and forth on issues. Like, he's the reason that same-sex marriage is legal, is because Kennedy is the swing vote on the bench. Most of the time, until Scalia died, it was typically 5 conservatives and 4 liberals. And so you'd see a lot of 5-4 decisions where the Kennedy made the swing on the decision. Now with Scalia off the bench, Obama has a chance to swing that so that we can have technically five progressive judges and 4 conservative justices with 1 somewhat centrist. And that would be a huge swing to the type of decisions that come out, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But the question is can Obama nominate someone who the Senate's going to agree to? The answer is probably not. So we'll talk about that in a sec. Do you guys have anything you want to comment on?
I just want to throw out, and I don't know if we were going to get to it later, but if the Senate blocks Obama's nomination, it'll be 10 months, a year, whatever. That will be like 3 times as long as a Supreme Court justice has ever been blocked.
Okay, so
Really?
Yeah, let's skip forward to the question is can Republican Senate block Obama's nomination? The answer is yes, and just to kind of give you a breakdown from the Washington Post, so it stands that Republicans have very little incentive to even consider President Obama's suggestion for who should replace Antonin Scalia, who died Saturday. There's some historical precedents for them to do just that. A hazy rule dating back decades that congressional experts say is really more of a tradition suggests senators of the opposition party of the White House can oppose some judicial nominations in the month before a presidential election. But then it also says it's not a rule. It's sort of a pie-in-the-sky flexibility that both parties try to disown when it's convenient for them and try to say it means something when it's not. So the question is how long has it ever taken to confirm a Supreme Court nominee? And the longest has been 87 days. And there have been some that have been withdrawn where they were never nominated. And actually that might not be the longest. Let me go through this article. Do you guys have anything to say about nominating or nominations?
No.
Nope. All right. So as far this article is by the New York Times. It's called How Long Does It Take to Confirm a Supreme Court Justice? And the longest time, and I'm just scrolling through here because it has all of the justices ever nominated to the Supreme Court. The longest one where there was a withdrawal was Reuben Walworth when John Tyler was president, and that was 96 days. And the longest it took to confirm someone was under Woodrow Wilson, who nominated Louis Brandeis. So, and that was 125 days. So, for us, if the Senate does what the talking heads are predicting they're going to do, because nobody in the Senate has actually said what they're going to do, it would be by far the longest it's ever taken to confirm a Supreme Court justice.
What is their backing behind that? Why are they doing that? Why will they block any of our guys?
Well, they're going to block whoever it is because of philosophical reasons, right? But they're going to pull up anything from this person's past or vote how they decided on cases and smear this person. I remember they did it with the last justice that Obama appointed. I don't remember her name.
Kagan? Elena Kagan.
Maybe that's who it is, yeah. And I remember them pulling up cases where she ruled one way or the other, and they just try and smear her and make her look bad. So they're going to do it for philosophical reasons, but that's how they're going to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it's going to – the other reason is essentially they have no motivation to allow anybody Barack wants to put on there unless it's a conservative, which would be, again, a really stupid idea. Who wants another conservative on the bench when the Democrats are holding the cards that they are? So essentially, we're going to be voting for not just the President of the United States this election. We're going to be voting for the President of the United States and the swinging member of whoever's on the Supreme Court of the United States.
So do you...
Plus, there's a bunch of seats up this year, right, in Congress?
Yeah, enough to make it a Democratic Congress with a lot, if it really, really goes well for the Democrats.
But I believe the next midterm election is where it really matters. There's going to be a lot of seats up, I believe.
And we need to vote on all those.
Yes. I'm just curious, Josh, and you too, Joe, do you actually see the Senate blocking the nomination for 10 months, for a year? Do you see them doing that?
the reason why I see them doing that is because they have no motivation to do otherwise. Again, for any senator, which is what it would take, any Republican senator to do that, to change positions, that would essentially be their political suicide.
Okay.
But it is unprecedented to block a nominee that long.
It's also unprecedented to not listen to a budget committee or to not read over a president's budget, which they just did a couple weeks ago. It's also unprecedented for them to block as many bills as they have, or to put through as few bills as they have,
And to challenge Obamacare as many times as they have.
Yep. And to go against Hillary Clinton as many times as they have. They've had 7 congressional Senate hearings on Hillary Clinton. 7. That's again, this is a strange time in politics where the Republican Party has become unbelievably controversial and unbelievably not willing to move on policies. And that's because the talking heads, the Rush Limbaughs and the Sean Hannitys of the world, essentially control what is going to happen if they do. Like they're saying, if you don't agree with us on everything, we're going to just talk shit about you on the radio until you become unpopular. And they have that power.
Yeah, I've seen it. I have seen it, and when I was a truck driver, I would listen to those guys. I'd listen to a lot of talk radio. I couldn't do it long. I'd listen to them ramble on for like 10 minutes, and I'd be like, oh, my fuck, I can't handle this.
And I just want to point out that the Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell insisted the next administration should make the appointment.
Oh, so I was wrong. Good. It's good that we have actually some solid news, because you said that was an actual politician, right?
Yeah, that was the Mitch McConnell.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they want to hold out then, right? They want to hold out until...
Yes, and even some Republican presidential candidates have come out.
Yeah, all of them did. If you listen to the debate last night, every last one of them said, oh, yeah, the president, a lame duck president has never done this, and that's bullshit. Justice Kennedy actually was a lame duck nominee within a year, and he was not nominated within the last year of a presidency, but he was appointed on the last year of the presidency. And Barack Obama is like 2 weeks ahead of what his last, or 2 weeks after his last year. So that's absurd.
And then Marco Rubio said, I do not believe the president should appoint someone, warning that Obama would, quote, ram down our throat a liberal justice.
Good.
I think he wants something rammed down his throat.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. Of course, it's the most right-wing who use those types of ram down our throats. But overall, I mean, what they're trying to do, and this might end up playing in the favors, is Bernie Sanders becomes elected, or looks like he's going to become the Democratic nominee, and he ends up running against Donald Trump. There might be good reason for them to finally agree on somebody who is going to get selected by Obama, because whoever Obama selects is going to be part of the
establishment.
Yeah. Or at least more establishment and more willing to compromise than anybody who Bernie Sanders is going to appoint.
And yeah. I think that's the same with Hillary. You know, if Hillary gets the nomination and wins, which I don't see happening, then I see her electing somebody that just like Obama would.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a neoconservative.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. Essentially, we're going to see what happens. They're going to be the people the senators are going to keep an eye on who's coming into the presidency.
Yeah.
And yeah, who knows what's going to happen. If Trump becomes the nominee, we might get some fucking random person. Maybe his cousin. Maybe his cousin.
Yeah.
Just some random guy.
It would be, yeah, because he donated money to the Clintons, and then Bill Clinton nominated one of his cousins. He put him on some federal judge. So yeah, let's just throw him on the Supreme Court.
So yeah, there's a lot of big issues that are also coming up. And now this is really what I wanted to talk about this whole time, but we had to do a lot of getting to there. This is on Think Progress. Now this is called, the title of this is The Simply Breathtaking Consequences of Justice Scalia's Death by Ian Millhiser. And these are the things that are coming up that the Supreme Court has already accepted to rule on. Now, in the case of a 4-4 split, what happens is the Supreme Court essentially doesn't uphold what the last decision was, but the last decision gets upheld. So if the Supreme Court can push these issues back and wait until there is a ninth justice, but that would be a lot of time with no decisions.
Yeah.
But if the Supreme Court makes a decision, so say it's a 5-4 ruling, then they create essentially new law or new understandings of current law.
Okay.
So immigration, United States versus Texas, concerns the legality of Obama administration immigration policies that, if allowed to take effect, will temporarily enable close to 5 million undocumented immigrants to remain in the country. It also allows the case that presents the most opportunity for chaos if the court divides on the outcome. So essentially, immigration has a decision, and so instead of going the way that it should, what would happen is the Fifth Circuit upheld those decisions in the court. So, yeah, it's going to be crazy on that. Let's see.
So if that happens and then we end up getting our ninth justice, do those cases come back?
No.
Or they would have to, whoever was bringing that case up to the Supreme Court would have to start over?
They'd have to write another writ of appeal. So the process would have to go back a ways.
And start over again, basically.
Essentially. And there might need to be new cases brought forth. I don't know for sure, but there would have to be a completely new writ of, I can't remember the real name for it, but it's like a writ of appeal to the Supreme Court.
Okay.
Well, that's some bullshit.
Yeah. The next one, abortion. Another case out of Texas. Whole Woman's Health versus Hellerstedt. Could also lead to confusion if the court evenly divides. Whole Woman's Health is the greatest threat to Roe versus Wade to reach the Supreme Court in generations. If 5 justices back the Texas law in this case, it is unclear that there will be any meaningful limits on states' abilities to pass anti-abortion laws. Without Scalia's vote, however, the chances that court will uphold the Texas law will outright is vanquishingly small. Should they split 4-4, however, the Fifth Court's decision upholding the Texas law will stand, and states within the 5 Circuit Court, which would be Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi, will most likely gain broad discretion to restrict abortion while Scalia's seat remains open. So essentially, abortion might not be upheld as a right for women in those states.
Man, this is big. And I see why the Republicans are going to do what we think they're going to do. I don't agree with it, but I see their reasoning, if you want to call it reasoning.
How long could the Republicans hold out, basically?
Technically, indefinitely.
Really?
Yeah.
So, okay.
So say Bernie Sanders becomes president, and then Bernie Sanders nominates someone. We could go, technically, his whole 4 years without another Supreme Court appointment.
But that would just be insane.
Yeah.
And I think that would be political suicide for the Republicans as well. To hold out for years, I would hope the American people would see that as just, bullshit, what it is.
Yeah, and this is the main point that we should take to heart here, is that we need to vote in senators that are going to help the president get their stuff done. And I say that with a grain of salt in mind, because if Donald Trump becomes president, of course that's not true. We just need to help Bernie or Hillary, whoever ends up in office, have some way of appointing justices who are going to get jobs done to protect birth control, protect women's rights to abort, to protect immigration. Now let me
I don't, it's a year away.
Yeah.
The presidency.
Yep.
Hillary Clinton can fucking change her mind in 2 seconds about shit. So I don't know, would she, that far away, help the Democratic Party?
Yeah, she will. She's a loyalist to the party, but she's also pro-establishment. So in our politics now, what's been interesting to watch this whole entire time is that left-wing and right-wing are still there. So there are people who are right-wing and left-wings on issues. But then there's now this new, essentially, this new dimension to it, where it's either pro-establishment or anti-establishment. Both Trump and Bernie are seen as anti-establishment, which is helping their popularity, whereas Hillary and Bush and Kasich and every other Republican essentially is seen as pro-establishment. So that's the reason why we're seeing this whole thing turn around, and we're seeing people in where was the last place? New Hampshire.
Yeah.
There were people in New Hampshire holding out to the last week who stated essentially this: I'm waiting to decide between who I'm voting for out of Trump and Bernie Sanders.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't between Trump and some other Republican or Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. It was between Trump and Bernie Sanders. That's who they were holding out for.
And it's so dumb because Trump is the establishment.
Yeah, I agree.
He is.
Yeah.
So let's quickly go over this and then move on to the next story. The other ones that are going to be decided soon is birth control, unions, redistricting, which is important because we're talking about gerrymandering, affirmative action,
And if you guys don't know what gerrymandering is, you should Google it because it matters.
and climate change. So, we should be optimistic about this because now we've lost the most conservative justice on the court, and we should have somebody who's more liberal no matter what. Even if it's a conservative justice, is going to be better than Scalia. It has been. But the problem is now we're going to have a time frame where decisions need to be made on important issues where it's very likely that the court is going to go split and nothing will be decided, and the process will have to start again. All right. So, again, optimism there.
Okay.
Be optimistic.
This cup's half full.
Should be more than half full. Because,
My beer's gone, though.
sad. All right. So let's talk about something on the podcast last week that we talked about was Joe and me and Matt had talked about for just a second about who is going to end up doing what if Hillary became the nominee. Both me and Matt, though Matt would probably vote. Why don't you tell us?
If Bernie does not get the nomination, and I've actually switched a little bit, I'm not sure. I will vote third party. Well, actually, fuck no. I'm going to write in Bernie Sanders.
Oh, so he changed to what Joe was talking about doing, and Joe was talking about writing in Bernie Sanders, and Joe also brought up the idea that maybe Bernie Sanders will run third party. I still don't think he will, but there's an interesting idea, and I would vote third party for the Green candidate.
And I just want to point out that some people look at that as a negative. Oh, you're going to take votes away from Hillary from the Democratic Party. But I don't give a shit. I'm going to vote with my conscience. And I'm going to vote for the candidate that I think is the better candidate.
Well, that's the thing. You need
even
to,
if I know that candidate.
That's what
lose.
the presidency is all about. You're voting for someone who represents you. And I'm sorry, Hillary Clinton does not represent any of us unless you have a lot of fucking money. So why in the hell am I going to support her? I'm not going to support her.
Yeah, so let's delve right into the heart of this and have a heated conversation. So there's this idea called Bernieorbust, and essentially the idea behind it is that, and this article had me on the fence for a little bit, but I've made what I think my decision is until further investigation and information. But the idea behind Bernieorbust is that if Bernie does not get the nomination, that you write in Bernie Sanders anyways, regardless, and with the hope that maybe somehow magically Bernie Sanders becomes, even with Hillary Clinton, about to combine names again, becomes the nominee, because there's really no way, and what that would essentially do is give the presidency to the Republicans, and that's a consequence that the Bernieorbust people are willing to die with, or willing to let go. And the reasoning behind that is that in 4 years, the Republican Party with the Republican in office is going to be far more unpopular than it is. And then also that might be enough to get Elizabeth Warren to run. So what do you guys think?
If Elizabeth Warren runs, like I've said before in earlier podcasts, I'd definitely vote for her. But, yeah, that's the thing. It's like voting for Hillary, I don't see we might as well go vote for a Republican. Any of the GOP candidates. That's how I see it.
All right, Matt.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Joel. I don't necessarily agree. I think Hillary will be better than a Republican, but I think she's fucking awful. She's pretty much center aisle. I think she would do things that are more liberal leaning, but I will not vote for her.
She'll do things that look liberal, but everything underneath it's going to be conservative.
Well, I don't think that that's the right way to frame it, though, Joe. I think that everything that she'll do things that are liberal, pro-establishment. Again, we're adding that extra dimension.
Yeah, okay.
So it won't be Republican in nature. It'll be liberal in nature, but pro-establishment, pro-money, pro-business, the electorates that are already there, the power that's already there. So that's what's going to end up, her votes are going to go towards.
Okay, see, yeah, so she's not there for me. She's not there for anybody. She's there for the rich people, the the establishment.
She wants a plutocracy. She's part of that. And that's a country or society governed by the wealthy few.
Same as an oligarchy.
An oligarchy is
a little,
but they're close enough to
Yeah.
the same.
Rich motherfuckers deciding shit.
Yeah. And see, I don't think that letting the Republicans win is the right strategy. I honestly don't. I think that if Bernie becomes the nominee, that we should support her overall, and that writing in Bernie Sanders for president is a bad idea overall. If you want to give some credence to non-traditional parties like the Green Party, I see some value in that. I don't see any value in helping Republicans win directly.
I see it as self-destructiveness. And I'm gonna go with it. You know what? Fuck it.
So
if the one fucking person who's actually talking sense can't get in there because this establishment pushes them down or does whatever they do, the DNC, the GOP, whoever, fuck them all, dude. Seriously, fine. You didn't want to give us Bernie? Here, have fucking Trump. Here, have Ted Cruz. Take it, bitch.
And see, I like the passion there. But here's my issue. Like, my conscience was eating at me when I was thinking about this. Like, I kind of want Trump and Cruz to win. But the problem with that is
win the nomination or win the election?
Win the election if Bernie doesn't have the nomination. Like, if Bernie can't win, then the idea sounds kind of sound. And it is somewhat sound politically. Every Republican has office, they're going to do unpopular things. Fact. If they do unpopular things, the next nomination is probably not going to be Hillary Clinton. It's probably going to be someone more progressive than Hillary Clinton. Hopefully Elizabeth Warren. But if in the meantime, what that does is that's going to have policy go into place where we're going to get entangled in the Middle East again. Real people are going to die because a Republican goes in office.
You don't think that's not going to happen if Hillary Clinton?
Not to the extent, no. I think she'll continue on whatever Obama's doing.
And I agree. I think she would continue what Obama's doing, but I think if a Republican gets in office, I think we would see war increase. So I don't hope for that because I don't want to see more innocent people die. I mean, we're going to see innocent people die with Hillary, but I think we'll see a lot more with a Republican, and I don't want to see that shit.
And I have faith that even if we have a Democrat next term, that we're going to get more liberal leaning. Like as a whole, as all of America, we're going to become more liberal leaning, and that eventually the Republican Party, as it stands now, is going to become a thing of the past.
I agree. The country, when you look at polls, the majority of Americans lean liberal on specific views and issues.
Yeah, and most of those match up Bernie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bernie is almost on the popular side of every single issue. I'm trying to think if there was one that he wasn't on, and I can't think of one. I mean, there are things that are unpopular that he says to the Republican base, but but fuck him.
But to the majority of Americans, he's on base with all of them.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, as always, we come to the conclusion that you should vote for Bernie, so that way we don't have to face that option. Now, here's another question. We've got 1 minute to spend on it, and maybe we'll have to bring it up next week. The super delegates might pull some fucking bullshit. Now, in that case, if Bernie wins the nomination from regular delegates, if he wins that nomination and the super delegates don't realign and they let Hillary win, then I think it's time to torch the DNC.
Completely.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't think that will happen. I hope it won't happen. But if it does, oh man.
Then the DNC and the GOP can suck on my little pee-pee.
Yeah, but I think that it's if Bernie Sanders if they're as worried about Bernie Sanders as they should be, it might happen. But we'll have to talk about what we should do in that case at a later show because we're down to our last minute. So thank you guys for listening.
Love you guys.
Bye, guys. Please masturbate.
Yep, and please check us out on Facebook at The Evil Atheist Facebook group page. We want you there so then you can hang out with us.
Bye.
Until next time, think passionately.
No.
Yes.